Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Today we're joined by David from the University of Keele, who's going to be sharing his research with us. So David, tell us a little bit about your research.
Well, currently I'm working in the field of nanotechnology applied to cardiovascular disease. So basically my research goes about using magnetic nanoparticles and magnetic nanotechnology to treat venous thromboembolism. And in this manner, we try to overcome some limitation that we have right now with traditional pharmacological treatment. It's venous thromboembolism is a condition which is basically characterized by the formation of clots in the legs veins usually. And these clots can eventually travel to lungs, and then possibly they will provoke there a lot of troubles. So the aim of the technology that we are trying to use here is mostly related to improve the prognosis of patients with this condition, because the problem that we have right now with this disease, which is really prevalent here in the UK, is that it is poorly treated. It is a disease that is really common. It is highly associated with patients that are in a bed in hospital. But the treatment, as it is not, let's say, the condition initially, as venous, as deep vein thrombosis is not critical, it is treated in a poor manner in the sense that usually physicians try to prevent the clot that forms there in the leg to grow, but they don't try to remove the clot straight away. So using this technology, what we are trying to do is putting particles there around the clot, and with a treatment that it is called magnetic hyperthermia that I can talk a little bit more later about, we try to effectively remove this clot from the vein of the leg, and then we prevent this travel of the clot from the leg to the lungs.
So that's really interesting. So you mentioned magnetic hypothermia. That's not a technique that I think an awful lot of our society members would be familiar with. Do you think you could maybe give us a little bit more information how that works and how it would get rid of a blood clot?
Yeah, well, it's a technology that already have few decades of development. Basically, the principle is that when we expose magnetic nanoparticles, that is, particles that are really tiny, smaller than platelets, smaller than cells, when we expose them to an external magnetic field, these magnetic nanoparticles start to dissipate, to generate heat. And the point with this heat is that we can use it to attack biological structure. Let's say it has been used previously to attack locally localized cancers and tumors. And now with this research, we are trying to use this principle, but instead of attacking the cancer, attacking the clot that is producing the venous thromboembolism. So that could be the general idea of magnetic hyperthermia, and how can we use magnetic hyperthermia to treat venous thromboembolism.
So is the idea in using the heat and the by basically heating up the nanoparticles, that it will then help to destroy the clot? Is that it will break the clot?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yes. Because basically you will attack the red blood cells that are lodged in the clot, then you will permeabilize the clot, and you will make the clot more sensitive to drugs that can dissolve the clot. So the idea here is that you are giving a localized treatment to the clot, and together with the enzymes that are used usually to dissolve the clot, you will have a stronger effect than using just the enzymes that are used to dissolve the clots in strokes, for instance. So that could be the idea. That could be the idea, yeah.
So if it works, and it works to break down and enhance the effect of like fibrinolytic drugs and thrombolytic drugs, would it be a case of a patient going into a hospital with with a blood clot and putting a magnet on, like, I can't even say it without laughing, because I feel like that is what is the case, but somehow I'm just kind of imagining a magnet. I don't know why. Like,
yeah, there are already some magnets, let's say, but it's not the kind of magnets that you put in your fridge. It's something more similar to an MRI, for instance, something like that. What it is to see, and this is something that probably I like to work in future, is depending on the region of the body that you want to apply the magnetic field. Probably it could be something more similar to an MRI, and this is going to be really expensive, or like something, let's say that you're going to treat your leg, something that you can put your leg in, and it will be around.
So we were wondering if there are any specialist techniques or technologies that you use in your research that you think other Platelet Society members should use more frequently or should start incorporating into their research.
Yeah, I think I'll say that probably, I mean, I'll suggest that probably nanotechnology and nanotechnological techniques could be quite useful for the platelet community, because they have been useful for me. I'm somehow a little bit away from this community, so I see this thing from a different perspective. So in my case, that mostly I work with magnetic nanoparticles and magnetic characterization techniques, I have found them really useful to characterize things in coagulation. For instance, clot retraction can be tracked using magnetic nanotechnology techniques. You can also characterize the clotting itself. You can characterize, I don't know, antibodies, labeling using magnetic techniques like alternating current sacetometry, alternating current magnetometry, which are, I mean, they are also techniques that are not quite spread, because we also, you need to build them, design them. They are homemade, let's say, but they are quite useful to track things that you cannot track with other techniques that are traditionally used by the platelet community.
It'd be really interesting to hear about your journey into kind of platelet biology and how you got to the position you're in now. If you don't mind telling us a bit more.
Yeah, well, I come totally from outside of platelet biology. I'm not even a biologist. So I studied material engineering at Keele University. And there I had the opportunity to get into a department of solid state physics. So I work basically with magnetic alloys that are used, I don't know, in lifters, in electrical cars and things like that. So not related to platelets at all. They were big magnets. So when I moved to my PhD, there is where I started to work more in biophysics. And there was when these magnets started to become smaller to the nanoparticle size. So during my PhD, I worked on magnetic hyperthermia, but to treat cancer. It is therapy where basically you use localized heat to attack and remove a tumor. There I work with magnetic nanoparticles and also designing and engineering magnetic instrumentation. This was in Madrid, Spain. From there, I moved to Keele here to do a postdoc under the supervision of Dr. Alan Harper, and basically working on magnetic hyperthermia to treat a stroke. And as we got good results there, I decided to continue and stay here, and I applied for a Henry Wellcome Trust Fellowship. And here I am right now.
Well, congratulations being a Henry Wellcome postdoctoral fellowship. That sounds really like a really big award to get. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the process of applying for it and what it enables you to do.
Well, about the process. Well, the process was tough. It's not easy to put a project together overall, because there are too many variables, and some of them depend on you, some of them don't depend on you, and these sometimes are quite annoying and difficult to assimilate or address. So, well, I don't know, what would you like to know exactly, like the application process, or what?
Yeah, so I guess so it might be interesting to other members of the Platelet Society that are thinking of applying for fellowships? Kind of, is it, you know, how does the application work? Is it purely based on the project, and then do you have like interviews?
Well, in my case, the application, you have basically two stages, so a pre-application and then a final application. So in the pre-application, basically you have to outline your project, and there also you have to mention, you have to nominate who are going to be your sponsors, where are you going to work on, and who are you going to work with. And also you have to talk about your intentions, your career intentions. You have to talk about your background. You have to talk about your achievements, that is publications, how your publications, which impact your publication had in your field, and so on and so forth. And then the funding body, if they consider that your project worth it, your project and your career and background worth it, then you go to the next stage where you have to put together the entire application. I think that this is the toughest part, because you need, obviously, you need to contact a lot of people. You need to ask them for a sponsorship. You need to put your project together, get the support letter from them, and finishing the project, all the outline of the project. And then after that, if you pass this stage, you have to go through an interview, an interview in person in London, which is, I mean, it is just itself, it's a really good experience, because it's quite impressive, quite professional too. You are used to, you know, some other interviews, your interviews where you go to a committee of 3-4 people. Okay, that's fine. This interview were 20 people there. So yeah, you feel really scrutinized, although only 2 people, you know, lead the interview. But it was a really good experience, because, you know, I passed that point. It was like, whoa, this is amazing. I didn't know that I was so good. You know, it's like all of us have this, how do you call this, this syndrome, imposter syndrome. I guess that in academia everybody has this a little bit. So when you pass this, it's like, wow, I'm a bit good. That's fine. So yeah, the experience is tough. It is really good too. I enjoyed it a lot. The part that I could enjoy, obviously, at some point was difficult. And about the process, if I can give some tips, I can give tips in let's say from a retrospective point of view, because to be honest with you, I mean, I just put the project together, I put my publications, I got a lot of help from my sponsor, from Dr. Alan Harper, from Professor Nate Telling. But from my experience, what I can say is that which really counts for this kind of fellowships is a good track record. So what I could say to the PhD students is work on a good track record. Try to be in groups which have a good publication tradition or publication habit, let's say. And try to work in a project that it is original. In the case of the Wellcome Trust, I'll say that they like risk. My project has a lot of risk associated, so I think that you can expand yourself into, you know, addressing risk, making an original project. Obviously, a project that can be carried out more or less, but you can use your imagination, let's say. And also another thing that I'll say is that surround yourself with people that can mentor you properly, good sponsor, people that are happy to help. And I think that this last point, I think that in some stages of my application was the most important point, because I mean, at some point there were points in where I say I can't put this together, but I had people behind me, you know, pushing me and telling, no, you have a good shot here, so you should go ahead. And I think that, well, that's basically my experience with application.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. And I think it's just really interesting to get people from all sorts of backgrounds and kind of specialisms coming into platelet biology, and it just shows how we can kind of innovate and attack new problems with broader thinking.
Multidisciplinary approaches.
Yeah.
So thank you, David, for taking the time to sit down and talk with us today. It's been really interesting.
Thank you for this fantastic interview and experience.
Join us next time for another instalment of Clot Chats.